And yeah, I will. Sorry about the beginning. For some reason, it cut it off. I don't know why. It's weird. And it just sounds like I'm talking out of nowhere. So I think what I said when I recorded it is basically I watched a Superman video clip and I got inspired, so I wanted to make a what if video. Okay, so I think that's all I said, but anyway, let's get back to the thing. I'm not sure what I was about to say, but anyway, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Anyway, a bit of, so we start off with Kryptonian, I think it was called, and then Superman's parents. So basically their planet was getting destroyed or dominated. I forgot what exactly happened. It's been a while since I watched the actual movie, everything, and I'm not that big of a fan of Superman and the DC universe. Well, I'm not a fan of the MCU either. I just like movies. Anywho, so yeah, Kryptonian was getting dominated, and then Superman's parents, I don't know their names, put their baby in a shuttle and sent him off. And then that shuttle landed on Earth in the My Hero Academia universe. And he landed on Earth. But then he crashed in a field on the countryside. And then, not sure what their names would be. Hold on. And then I'm gonna say that Inko's parents was the field that owned the field that Izuku landed on. And it was nighttime, and then I'm gonna call Inko's dad John, and then Inko's mom Carol. I know those are like American names. I guess, but I don't know what else to call them. I know they're generic, but I don't know what else to call them. I'm not good with names and who. So like they heard a boom and a shockwave follow that. And then Carol was all like, "What was that?" Like, what the fuck? And then John was like, "Does it look like I know what was that?" And then she was all like, "Well, are you gonna go check it out?" And then John was like, "Oh, hell no. I'm too old for that, and plus it's night." By the way, they're a bit older. They're like in their, let's go, late mid-60s. Yeah, they're in their mid-60s. So then they go to bed. Next morning, John gets up, gets ready, does his usual thing, and then he finally goes out in the fields. He looks around, and then he notices that there's a big ass metal thing in his field, and then he's like, "What the fuck?" And then he notices all his crops were like crushed around it, and then he's like, "Damn it, my crops, I will avenge you." And then he goes towards it, and then he was just like looking at it, and he was just like looking around. He's like, "What the hell is this thing?" And then he pushes a button. Oh, what are the chances he pushes a button? And he pushes it, and then suddenly the shuttle starts like shifting and making noises, and it opens, and then it pops open, and then John sees is a baby that has green hair and green emerald eyes, big bright eyes. And then Hasashi, oh God, I keep calling him Hasashi, I'm sorry. John was all like, "What the fuck?" And then he picks him up, and then Izuku was all like being all happy and and he was being happy and he was giggling and stuff. And then John was like, "Oh, you cute little thing, what are you doing out here?" And then John just like starts walking back towards the house with Izuku in his arms. And then he was playing, and then John was playing with Izuku and being all cute and stuff. And then Carol hears like giggling, like someone else besides her husband. Then she pops her head out of the door and just sees John walking up the driveway with the baby in his arms. And then Carol was all like, "Where the hell did you get that thing?" And then John was like, "I'm not sure if you're gonna believe me about this." He was out in the fields and a big metal thing, I don't know. And then Carol was like, "All right, that's the last straw. Pack your stuff. Get your shit out of my house. You finally gone crazy." And then John was like, "No, I promise you, I'm being serious. I found them out there." And then John was like, "You can go look yourself." And then Carol was like, "Mm-hmm. I'll go look." Like to prove her point. And then Carol starts walking out and going to the field, going to look at the shuttle, while John goes inside with Izuku. And cleans him up and feeds him and makes sure that there's nothing wrong with him and that he's doing all right. So then we're gonna cut back to Carol outside, just looking around, and then she finally says, she's like, "Holy fuck, that he wasn't lying." And then she goes towards it, and then I'm gonna say that she is retired and that she used to work in anything that involved space. I don't know what you would call it. but she worked in that area, I guess you could say. And she was all looking around it, and she was astonished. And then she was like, "Oh my god!" And then she speed walks back to the house, and then Hisashi is on the floor just playing with Izuku, being all cute and stuff. And then she busts open the door, and then she was all like, she was just shocked, and then she was all like, "You were being serious." And then Hisashi was like, "I told you. I told you it was true." And then suddenly they hear, I told you." And then they like snap their heads back over to looking at Izuku while he's all smiling all happily. And then Carol was all like, was that his first words? "I told you." And then Hisashi just breaks down. Not Hisashi. John breaks down laughing. And then Carol was like, "Shut up." So then she snaps out of it and she says, "Well, anywho, we gotta get serious about this." And then John was like, "Yeah, there's a kid outside all night in a weird metal ball thing." And then Carol was all like, "Well, I know one thing for sure. That kid ain't human." And then John was like, "What? What are you talking? What are you implying now? What are you implying?" And then Carol was like, "That thing outside, it's not from Earth. Not at all. He was in it. And now I'm guessing that he's an alien." And then John was all like, he just looks at Izuku, and then he's all like, "So you say that we just saved an alien?" And then Carol was all like, pretty much. And then Sashi just like goes over to Izuku and picks him up and like holds him above his head while Izuku's just like waving his hands and being happy and laughing. And then John was like, "Are you an alien? Are you an alien?" And just playing around. And then Carol was like, "Oh, he's adorable." And then John was all like, "Yep." And then Carol gets serious again, and then she was all like, "Well, I would say let's adopt him, but we're pretty old and fragile." Even though we run a farm, I don't think I can raise a kid again. But oh, by the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. Probably didn't. She disowned Inko. Yeah, because Inko got pregnant with Hasashi's baby, and then they had an argument about how that she was not ready to be a parent and everything, and that she should abort it and everything. And then Inko was like, "No, I'm gonna raise a child, and and I'm gonna take care of it." So that's where they butted heads, and then Carol, or Inko's mom, gave Inko an ultimatum saying that it's either you abort that child, or you can pack up your stuff and leave. And then Inko was like, "Fine." And then like Carol was shocked that that her daughter would just easily say that. And then, Carol didn't want to go back on her word. So then Inko moved out with Hisashi. No, Hisashi was a high schooler. They were 18. It was legal, mostly. They were 18. But then it turned out that baby died at birth. And then Carol didn't want to go take back on her word and anything. So that's where, and then after that happened, after Carol heard about the baby dying, she just like cut off talking with Inko. And Inko, wait, no. And 2 months later, Hisashi left Inko. So then now she's just out there on a low paid job, but she's still surviving out there. She isn't really relevant to this story. It's mostly her parents, mostly Inko's parents. Anywho, and Carol, Inko's mom, did change after that. She became nicer, but like, those like mean and kind of stern old ladies, but like they also can be fun and funny. That's Carol right now. She's that type of lady. And then Inko's dad is like the more fun and let loose and goofy one in the relationship. So yeah. So that happened. So then Carol was all like, "I don't think I could do another one." And then Hisashi was like, "Yeah, plus we're old. We're gonna die soon." So then Carol was all like, "Well, I don't think we should report him to the police saying that he was in a shuttle and everything, because I know the type of stuff that they do to people that they don't completely understand well, and they do horrible things to them, like experiments and stuff." Then Hisashi was like, or not Hisashi, John was like, "Yeah." And then Carol was all like, "Well, how about we just put up him in adoption?" And Hisashi, goddamn, John said, "Yeah, but let's just make sure he goes to a good one, because I'm getting a good orphanage." So then they go to the store and they get like clothes for Izuku, like one set of clothes. And while they're in the store, Izuku, John was carrying Izuku on his shoulder, and they were picking out stuff. But as they were walking past the kids' toys, they're just walking past it. Izuku grabbed onto All Might figurine, and then he started playing with it and like giggling and laughing and being happy, and then Hisashi just decides to get the toy for him. So yeah, that's what they did, and then they headed over to the adoption place. And then they were all like, well, we found this kid on the side of the road and stuff. And then they were all like, we completely believe you 100%. No questions asked. We'll take him in. And then they're like, okay. So then, like, there's, like, kind of signing out paperwork. And, like, when they're about to leave, when John and Carol were about to leave, Izuku crawls over there to John and grabs onto his leg and like looks up at him and gives him puppy dog eyes. And then Carol was like, don't fall for it, resist it. And then John was like, I fell for it. And then he picks up Izuku, and then Izuku's all happy and giggling. And then the lady that was helping them sign out the papers was all like, why don't you just adopt them? And then they were all like, well, we're old and we don't think we could give him the best life that he could have because there's no guarantee, and we might die in 10 years and he might have to go to an orphanage anyway, and he'll be sad because he knew us. And then she was like, oh, okay, I guess I can kind of see your reasoning for that. And then Hisashi, God damn it. John was all like, can I give him a name? And then the lady was like, yeah, sure, why not? I don't see why not. And then John was all like, he raises Izuku up, and then he was like, what should we name you? And then he was all like, I got it, Izuku Midoriya. Yes, they gave him their last name because they're nice people. They just gave him their last name. And the lady was like, well, okay, Izuku Midoriya, we should get you to your new home now. And then that was the end of that interaction with Inko's parents. He went into the orphanage. Let's say it's a religious orphanage or whatever, and that they have nuns there and stuff. And then when he went in there, by the way, this is still when he's a baby. And then, like, as he grew up over the years, everyone loved him. He was the golden child. He was always happy and cheery and cheered everyone up if they're feeling down, or helped them out if they needed help. But that when he would only help them out when they were like, when he would only help them out and make people feel better when he was like 3, because I don't think a 1 or 2-year-old could do that unless he just used his cuteness. So like, yeah, the nuns loved him. Everyone loved them. By the way, getting time skip to when he's 4. So then the quirk doctor comes to the orphanage. He does everyone else, and then he comes to Izuku. And then he checks him out. He does a test and everything. And then everyone was expecting Izuku to have a good quirk because golden child. And then the quirk doctor came back, and he was all like, he knelt on his knee and said, kid, what do you want to be in the future? And then Izuku was all like, I want to be a hero and save people, make sure everyone's okay. And then all the nuns were all like, yes, golden child. and then the doctor like pulled aside one nun and said, I'm sorry to tell you, but he's quirkless. And like everyone, and then she's like, "What? No, it can't be. He was gonna have a bright future." And then doctor was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, he's quirkless." And she's like, "Okay, thank you for coming this year." Then he's like, "Yeah, no problem." So then she goes up to Izuku and tells him about that. And then Izuku just like looks down and let a tear drop out. And then he grabs his All Might figure. He still has it because that's the most treasured thing in his life, because that was the only thing he was left with. And then he grabs it and he looks at it and he says, "I'm gonna be the number one hero no matter what," as he raises the toy with like in his hand, saying that he's gonna be number one hero. Then everyone's all like, "Ah, nice kid." And then once the kids in the orphanage heard about this, that he's quirkless, they started to like bully him. They would never hit or beat him up. They would just verbal attacks. And then the nuns didn't know about this because the nuns would beat anyone's ass if anything, they said anything bad about the little precious being. So this goes on for, it's gonna time skip to when he was 10. He is 10. You know, by the way, he did go to the same school as Bakugo. Bakugo did pick on him. He never directly like blew an explosion on Deku. He never beat him up, but he would like grab his pencils and his notebooks and explode them in his hands or his desk, but it was never Izuku himself. Hold on. Where were we? Yeah. So time skip to when he was 10. He just got back from school like everyone else, and then these villains attack. They like lock up all the doors and everything. Lock up the doors, and then they come in with a gun telling everyone to like get down and everything. And right now the villains, they're not really doing this for a reason. They just want to do it because they want to do it. Sadly. So then Izuku was there. So then they like tie everyone up, line them up against the wall. Line them up against the wall. And then one of them pulls out a gun and points it at a kid's head. And then the other one points it at a nun's head. And then another one points it at a supervisor's head. And then everyone's like screaming like, "No, please don't do it." And Izuku was all like, "No, please don't." And then he starts crying. And then suddenly the person next to him notices his eyes getting redder and redder. And then finally beams come out. And then the villains was like, "What the hell?" Flips around and like tells Izuku to knock it off, or else he's gonna shoot one of them. And then Izuku was like, I can't, I don't know how, I'm sorry. And then he closes his eyes, and then that's when it stops. And then once he opens it again, it starts again. So like basically the villains figure this out, and they just like kind of put a blindfold over Izuku as they just like knock him out. So then once Izuku woke up, not everyone, like 3/4 of the people he grew up with and were dead. There was blood everywhere, and then the heroes were too late by the time they got the notification. So then child services came to Izuku and saying that they're going to move him to another orphanage, and that just go to a new orphanage. And then Izuku was all like, oh, okay, well, can I go back inside and get my All Might figure? And then like a police officer comes out and like hears this, and he says, oh, you mean, oh, All Might figure, you said? And then Izuku was all like, yeah, an All Might figure. And then he goes over to like a bag. He pulls it out and he's like, here you go, kid. I'm sorry, but there might be some blood on it and you might have to clean it off. And then Izuku was all like, thank you. And then the police officer's like, no problem, kid. So then child services wasn't aware that Izuku did that with his eyes. They didn't know he did that. And no one mentioned it from the people who survived that thing. So he goes to an orphanage, and then like he's feeling down, but he's sad, but he's not depressed. But he kind of wants to meet the people who dropped him off at the orphanage, because everyone was telling him that was his grandparents and everything. So then he like goes into a supervisor's office at the orphanage. Same thing at this orphanage. They verbally abuse him. They don't ever physically hurt him. So yeah. He sneaks into a supervisor's office, goes on their computer and like looks up everything that they know about him and who dropped him off, and then he gets their address. So then he decides to steal one of the kids, like one of the kids that bullies him. He decides to steal their money, and they had like $50. And then he does that, and then he buys him a bus ticket to the countryside and everything. Then he gets on the bus. This is on the weekend, by the way. It's like, let's say it's Saturday. Then supervisors doesn't really count for if all the kids are there. They're kind of lazy at this one. But anywho, he sneaks out, gets a bus pass, drives to the countryside. And then once he gets to a main town, and then he catches a ride with this nice lady, nice middle-aged lady. He hops in the back of the truck and catches a ride to the address, and he's like, thank you. And then she's like, yeah, anytime. She drives off, and as he's walking up to the driveway, and then he was like nervous. And he was like, I wonder if they even remember me. And then next thing he knows, he's up by the door, about to knock. And then he like breathes in, breathes out. He's like, only now or never, basically. And then he knocks on it. And then like a few seconds later, he hears, hold on, I'm coming to the door. And then John opens the door, and he was all like, oh, hello, how may I help you, young sir? And then Izuku was all like, oh, are you John Midoriya by any chance? And then John was all like, yeah, I am. Do I know you? Or do you need anything? And then Izuku was like, oh, I'm not sure if you even remember me, but this he was like stuttering, he's like trying to get words out, and then John was just like looking at him like, huh? And then Carol comes out next to John saying, who's there, honey? And then she sees this green hair boy that's like, by the way, he's naturally a little bit more, he's like lean, I guess you could say. he's lean right now. And then she notices those emerald eyes and the green hair, and then she gasped, and then John was like, well, you know what? And then Carol just whacks him on the head. You old fart, you don't even recognize him. And then John was like, ow, that hurt. And what do you mean? And then she was like, that's Izuku, right? Your name's Izuku. And then Izuku was all like, yeah. And then Carol was like, you're the kid that we left at the orphanage. And then Izuku was like, yeah, that's me. It's kind of awkward. And then Carol was like, well, come in. So then Izuku comes in, they give him a cup of water and everything, and then they ask him about his life, and then he tells them everything that happened in his life. And then they feel bad for the shooting and everything. And then they kind of like look at each other, and they're all like, just wait here. As they go in a different room, and then they're all like, well, we made it this long. Do you think we should adopt him? And then Carol was all like, I mean, he seems like a decent kid. And then Hisashi was like, all right, we adopt him. And then Carol was like, no, I didn't say officially. He's like, nope, we're adopting him. As he walks out the door, then he goes to Izuku, and then he goes up to Izuku, then he was all like, well, how about we adopt you? And then Izuku was like, wait, what? And then John was all like, yep. Do you mind if we adopt you? And then Izuku starts crying, and then, like, happily crying, like, yes, oh my god, thank you. I have a family, or I hope I have a family. I'm sorry for moving too fast. And then John was like, nope, you're my son. And then Carol was just looking was like leaning at the doorway, just like folding her arms. She was leaning on the doorway and smiling as she sees the two just like goofing around. And then Carol came out, and she was all like, well, Izuku, there's one thing we haven't told you about you yet. And then John immediately knows what she's talking about. And then John was all like, are you sure? Do we want to tell him? I mean, he's just 10. Yeah, I don't know how 10-year-old got a bus pass and like literally just traveled all the way around. Don't question it. But anywho, yeah. And then John was like, are you sure he's just 10? Maybe when he's a bit older. And then Carol was all like, I think it's best if he learns now, and that we be upfront with him. And then Izuku's like, huh, what are you talking about? And then Carol tells him to sit down. Then they all sit down, and then Izuku was like, why is this getting serious? Did I do something wrong or anything? And then Carol was like, no, it's just you. We need to tell you how we found you. And then Izuku was like, huh? Found me? I thought I was your grandson. Because that's what everyone told me at the orphanage, that you were my grandparents. And then they look at each other and they're like, no, we're not related at all. But we did find you, and I think it's better if we show you. And then they take him out to the barn that they had, and they just see in a corner this big metal thing. And then Izuku was like, huh? How does it, I mean, it looks cool and everything, but how does this have to do anything with me? And then as they tell him of how they found them and everything, and that how he's basically an alien from outer space. And then Izuku was like, wait, what? I'm an alien, but I'm human. Like, no, this can't be possible. And then Carol was like, well, kid, it's it's possible, but you seem mostly human. And there's no other explanation for this thing being in our yard and that big boom and everything. And he's like, no way. And then he starts getting emotional again. That's when his eyes start getting redder and redder until they finally go into the laser beams. And then like Izuku told them that he was quirkless when he was telling him about his life. Then John was like, "Whoa, kid, watch it!" Like as Izuku was like looking around real quickly, just like basically burning everything. And then John was like, "Kid, watch it! You're gonna burn us!" And then Izuku was like, "I'm sorry." And then he closes his eyes real quick. And then John was like, "Keep your eyes closed. Hold it. Whatever you do, don't open those eyes." And then like as Carol and John go behind Izuku and or like besides Izuku, kind of behind and also kind of on the sides, and says like, and John was like, "Open it," as they were scared. And then Izuku opens his eyes and they go back to normal. And then John was like, "Didn't you say you were quirkless?" And then Izuku was like, that can't be right. I thought I was quirkless. The quirk doctor said I was quirkless. And then John was like, "Well, kid, it looks like you're not quirkless anymore." And then after that little interaction, we're just gonna time skip to when he is 14. Yeah. By when he was 14. By the way, they did adopt Izuku, and they gave him a good life, and he transferred to schools and everything, so no longer has to go to the same school as Bakugo or anything. But by the time he was 14, he did realize that he had more than one ability. Because technically he is quirkless. And then his abilities, I'm just going to look it up and go off of what it says. So if any of these are wrong, blame it on Google or on, not me, basically. I don't know all of his abilities, but I'm going to tell you now. Hold on, I gotta look it up. Okay, I looked it up, and what it says is that he has super strength, flight, super speed, invulnerability. Unless it's kryptonite. He has vision, which it says X-ray vision and heat vision. And Superman was also given telescopic and microscopic vision. Yeah, those are all his visions. Then he has hearing. Superman could hear sound at almost any wavelength, and at great distances. His hearing is used for people calling for him and his help as for distress calls. He has super breath. Superman's breath was capable of freezing objects and generating hurricane force winds. His super breath can extinguish fires or freeze things. He could also hold his breath indefinitely, allowing him to travel underwater or in space without breathing. Mental powers. Superman possesses genius level intelligence and basically perfect memory. I don't know how to say it, but anywho, these enhanced mental capabilities were a direct result of his exposure to a yellow sun, as evidenced by the script. So basically, he's really smart. That's all I'm going to say about this one. He has super, god damn, what is that word? That's a big word. Super, I'm just gonna spell it out, and if you know what it is, and if you know how to say it, you know how to say it. Okay, so it's spelled like VENTRILOQUISM. You could type that into Google if you want to find out. But anywho, it says Superman could throw his voice across great distances. This power was, yeah. So basically, speak loud. Super hypnosis. This power enabled Superman to hypnotize anyone. Stamina. Superman could survive indefinitely without food, water, or rest due to yellow sun's radiation. Healing factors. Superman could regenerate physical damage to his body at an accelerated rate. I'm not sure if I want to give this, but it says that he can memory wipe, kiss. So basically, Superman could wipe people's memories by kissing them. It's an odd power, but it's a power. So yeah, and I think that's it. Yeah, that's what it all lists in that thing. So, hold on. Okay, that was the first part. It's mostly about backstory. Not sure if I'm gonna post a second one like immediately after, or if I'm gonna do my other series that I'm doing right now, which is the Winter Soldier series first. So but I hope to get out the next video of this what if in the next week. Yeah. Sorry if you heard any noises in the background. So yeah, that's it for today. Bye.